open like this. So if you open up something like, suppose booking.com, let's open this up. So if you navigate to this web page, the simple web page, it shows you that you are inside this web page, and it has the title of HTML5 CSS3 JS. And you might have several tabs open up on your browser. So I've got another tab that's telling me what's the website name and what that website is. So just by looking at that name that's placed inside that tab, I can tell what the website is. So I can clearly navigate to that website. So similarly, if I want to navigate back, I can read the name on the tab. So this title tag that you see with the opening title tag and the closing title tag, whatever you place inside that will get printed out on it will get printed out onto this part of your tab. So that's really useful for a user because it makes navigation a lot easier. I'll explain this matter a little later. Just remember that we need to place our style sheets inside this head elements, and we also need to place the title inside this head element. But whatever we place inside these body tags, this opening body tags and the closing body tags, will get printed out onto this page, onto this web page's context. So if you look carefully, we have a heading, learning HTML.css. So our page actually starts from here. It starts from this heading part. So you'll see that my browser is printing out that heading part onto this page. It's not printing out outside the page's context. So whenever you place, you need to remember this very carefully, whenever you place anything inside this body tags, the opening and the closing body tags, everything will get printed out onto the page's context. But whatever you place inside that head section will not, it will usually not be visible to us, but it's a requirement because we need to use style sheets to use stylings on our web pages like this. And the only thing that you need to remember just for the moment is that we will always need to place the title, the link, and the JS or the JavaScript scripts inside this head section. There are two main conventional approaches for placing scripts, the JavaScript languages files. I'll be talking about that a little later. So let's just focus onto this body section of this web page. Yeah, if you look carefully, this heading, which has an opening tag of h1 and a closing tag of h1, is being printed out by the browser onto the web page. Then again, if you move to the lower part of this body tag, if you move like this, let me open this up. Okay. Now, okay. So this is the image section. So if you look carefully, after printing out the the heading, the page heading, the browser then looks what other elements are there inside your HTML document. So it finds that inside your HTML document, you're calling an image. You're calling an image from your file path. So I have placed my images inside a subfolder called image. So this image, as you can see, this image is being called by the HTML document, and the web server is reading that, and it's printing out that image onto my web page. Usually your web pages will be hosted on a web server, but right now we don't need to have a web server. You just need to have browsers and a text editor or an IDE. So after this image is being printed out, let's move on to the next part. Then we have several paragraphs. So we have 3 paragraph sections. The first one is this one. It's a Latin form. The second one starts with AT. The third one is the English paragraph. It starts with the phrase "on the other hand." So if you look carefully, our page is printing out the first 2 Latin sections, and then finally we get the English paragraph section. So again, our browser looks further down the document. It also sees that we have a footer part. A footer part is always placed at the bottom of any HTML document. So at the footer part, we have placed the credentials for the developer. So I've placed my name in there. So let's find out where it is. So the browser, when it sees that it has a footer part, it's taking that footer part and taking whatever we want to print out on our web browser. It's taking that and it's showing it to us on the web page. So after we apply the styling, there's a dramatic change perhaps. So we have placed a background color of black, and the heading has a border, a white border, and this heading section also has a small background color. This is gray, a dark gray, and the heading, the font size for this heading is a lot smaller. You can also see that because this is bare bone with no styling or with no style sheets attached, we see that the browser is printing out all these elements in a sequential order. It's not printing out anything it's printing out this image as it is. It's not resizing that image. Neither is it producing this paragraph right beside the image. If you want to place this paragraph right beside the image, you need to use CSS styling, just like this. I have decreased the size of this image and I've placed the paragraphs on the right hand side, and I have also placed the credentials for the developer on the right hand side. So this is the basic styling for it. Now I'll be explaining everything in detail. Now let's have a trip of the brackets text editor. So in brackets, let's open up that file. Let's look at how it looks. So we are inside the brackets section. So brackets won't actually tell you where the mistakes are occurring. You will have to include or install additional plugins to do that, so you can see where that error is. So this is telling me there is a problem with this. Okay, this is nothing of the sort. Now it will tell you, it will color your codes, it will color the HTML tags, it will tell which file you're currently working on, and it will do the likewise. But if you look at the App Tunnel Studio, it shows you the entire file system. It's much more comprehensive than the text editor, and you also get a terminal. If you look carefully, this is a terminal that we usually get on the Mac. Okay. So you can work with this. You can list all the, I'm listing all the folders on my desktop. You can work with this, and your console will, you also have a built-in web server inside this, the Firefox. You can build your codes. You can even open up new projects. You can open up PHP projects or a web project. We'll be talking about creating a project. right after this. But inside this text editor, you do not have any sort of advantage of creating a project. Whenever you try to develop a website, it's better to organize your codes into a project or into an app. So it's better if you use an IDE rather than a text editor. But if you're more comfortable with a text editor, then you should go ahead. It's just a recommendation, not a compulsory measure. So these are the basic differences between an IDE and a text editor. And you can also see, if we move on to this part, and if you look carefully at this, at the bottom of this section, let's increase the height. If you look carefully, this Aptana is actually listing out all the major elements inside the HTML document. So the first major element is the HTML tag, or the HTML element. Inside this HTML element, as I've already told you, we need to have the head. So it's telling me the head element. It's showing me that there is something called a head element, and it's also telling me that there is also something known as the body element. So if I browse inside this head section, it's also telling me that we have a title, a link, and a meta. So the link is directing us towards a style sheet that is stored inside the subfolder CSS, and it's also printing out a title for the web page. Now it's only going to tell you what are the tags or what are the elements that are present inside this HTML document. It's not going to show you all this content. The user or the programmer has defined content. Now let's look onto this body part. So inside this body, we have three major elements or three major tags. So it's first telling me that there is something called a header tag, and there's another tag right after the header tag that is known as the section tag. And at the bottom, we have a footer tag. So if you navigate even deeper, you will find all this paragraph beside the image tags. So it's giving you a structure, the entire structure to work on for your HTML document. Likewise, if you move on to this style sheet, it's also telling you all the data and all the rules sets. We'll be discussing about these rule sets. So basically, you need to have a multiple of web browsers. So I have got three because I'm running on Mac. I've got three of them: the Safari, the Chrome, and the Mozilla Firefox. So usually the modern browsers, they usually render out the page in a similar context, but you will always face a problem whenever you try to make the web page look similar inside the Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer has a different architecture than the Google Chrome or the Mozilla Firefox. So whenever you request a page, we always create an HTTP tunnel, as we have talked about earlier, like this. But there are pages that you will find that has a tunnel called HTTPS. So what's the difference between those two tunnels? So let's navigate to facebook.com. Now, if you look carefully, if you click onto this, you'll see that there is something called HTTPS www.facebook.com.